Chiefs Kingdom. On today's episode of the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports, we are going to be breaking down the bold prediction that Sports Illustrated put out for the Kansas City Chiefs in their 2026 offseason. I'm not going to lie to you guys, you're not going to love what they had to say. Let's not waste any time here. Let's jump right into what Connor Orr said. He said the Chiefs will not draft Jeremiyah Love in the first round. Despite Kansas City and the Notre Dame running back being a mock draft obsession, Kansas City will bolster its defense with the highest pick it expects to have over the next 10 years. Talking about that 9th overall selection. And I just now noticed this, but also spelling Jeremiyah Love's name wrong. And I know he did that because I copied it directly. So come on, Connor. We got to spell our boy's name correctly. We got a Y in there. But what say you about this? What would your one-word reaction be if the Chiefs passed on Jeremiyah Love at 9? If he was on the board and the Kansas City Chiefs said, you know what, we're going in a different direction. We are not going to draft Jeremiyah Love with the 9th overall pick. We're instead going to address our defense. To me, I would be like, I get it. At the end of the day, that would be kind of my reaction. I'd be bummed to miss out on Jeremiyah Love, but I also understand addressing the defense. I don't think there's necessarily just one right answer for the Chiefs at 9. I've been on the record that I think Jeremiyah Love would be an awesome pick. I've mocked him to the Chiefs before. I would have no problems with it. I'd probably give it an A here on the channel when we do our draft grades. But there are a lot of options, and this defense cost us games in 2025. It absolutely did. You could upgrade in a number of different areas. If Caleb Downs is there for you, that'd be a home run pick. We have talked about that. You could go edge/interior defensive line wherever he ends up long term with Ruben Bain from Miami. You could do the same thing with Texas Tech, Texas Tech's David Bailey, although we've talked about how Bailey may not be the best fit for Steve Spagnuolo's scheme, or Peter Woods. If you want to continue to address that long-term successor for Chris Jones, maybe Peter Woods is your guy out of Clemson, athletic freak. Let's look at my top 5 prospects. These are the 5 guys I think disregard where they might be on the board. When you look at what the Chiefs need and when you look at the guys available in this draft class, these are the 5 best prospects for the Kansas City Chiefs. Carnell Tate and Caleb Downs would be unbelievable steals. Highway robberies at number 9, guys. Both of those would be fantastic. I lean Tate by a smidgen, by a hair. I went back and forth on these two a lot, but I ultimately think Tate would be a slightly better pick because of what he would offer Patrick Mahomes for the long term as that number 1 option, a guy he could trust for years and years to come. But with both of those two guys unlikely to be there, I think that's where you come back to Jeremiyah Love, in my opinion, or if you're Connor, or back to Ruben Bain or David Bailey or Peter Woods or a number of other options at edge defender. But I think the long and the short of it is the Buckeyes would be the best picks, but they're probably not going to be there for us. That's my biggest concern, is either of the Ohio State players who would both be phenomenal upgrades for this team, who would both address big needs. I think with Brian Cook exiting, safety is an underrated need for this Kansas City Chiefs team. You look at the way things are going to shake out in free agency. I was actually talking to our Steelers host today. He came up and asked me, do you think Brian Cook's going to be around in Kansas City next year? And I said, Sperry, to be completely honest with you, I don't. I think they're going to have to make a hard decision there. Caleb Downs could be your answer. Carnell Tate could be your number 1 receiver. Those guys would both be fantastic, but I don't think they're going to be there. And there's a chance Jeremiyah Love won't either. That's the other thing to worry about. We're going to talk next about what the Kansas City Chiefs could do if all 3 of those guys are already off the board at number 9, how they address their issues, how they continue to improve. But before we do, we've got to give a shout out to our merch. The first merch run on the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports, our Kansas City Chiefs drinking team tees. just in time for St. Patrick's Day, which is right around the corner. They come in Kelly green, but I know a lot of you guys don't want to wear anything that could possibly be construed as representing the Philadelphia Eagles. So we've also got them in black for you guys. The clover on the helmet, I think, looks absolutely awesome. The material on these is fantastic, and I just think it's a great design, great way to rep the Kansas City Chiefs on St. Patrick's Day and still not get pinched because you've got on your green if you go with that Kelly green option. I am absolutely going to be rocking one of these on St. Patrick's Day. I think you guys should join me and rep the kingdom, and do so with the link chatsports.com/KCGreen. That's where you can pick one of these up. Again, that is chatsports.com/KCGreen to get your Kansas City Chiefs drinking team tees today. Let's continue with our discussion here. So I think it's worth considering, like I mentioned earlier, that it is absolutely realistic. And I don't know if it's the plus 50% odds that all three of them are gone, but there is a world in which Carnell Tate, Caleb Downs, and Jeremiyah Love are all off the board before we can pick. We pick at 9, guys. We don't have full control of what the 8 teams ahead of us are going to ultimately do, and I think there's realistic landing spots for all 3 of these guys before we get on the board. Carnell Tate, I think, goes off the board as early as 4. Tennessee, they might decide, when you look at their team, we don't have a number 1 receiver for Cam Ward. We have this quarterback that we feel is our future. We need a number 1 option for him. I think that would be the rationale for both Tennessee and New York at the end of the day. Although New York does have Malik Neighbors, you're looking at that elite number 2, that running mate for Malik Neighbors, that next option for Jackson Dart to surround him with talent to continue his development. So both of those teams could go in that direction, and it's absolutely realistic that the Saints could do so at 8 as well if he's around on the board there. Maybe they want to add another option for their young guy in Tyler Shuck. All 3 of these teams have young quarterbacks. All 3 of them want to add weapons. I think it's absolutely realistic. Move on to Caleb Downs, our other Buckeye. I think the earliest spot for him, and this would be a little bit early in my opinion, maybe a little bit rich. The Jets might decide, you know what? We're taking the best player available in our opinion. We are drafting him at 2nd overall. No Dante Moore, we're going safety. We just want the best guy on this team. We can't afford to miss on this pick. We need to add somebody that adds value to the roster, even if it's not at the most valuable position. Let's go Caleb Downs. That could be the argument. Maybe Robert Saleh, defensive-minded head coach coming into Tennessee, wants to pick him up at number 4. I could absolutely see that. Or the Giants, their new head coach, John Harbaugh, just sounded off that Caleb Downs is a target for him at number 5, that he would, quote, be absolutely fine with the New York Giants taking Caleb Downs there. So Downs and Tate, it feels like are unrealistic to get to us, but where could Love go? Right out from under our nose, guys. Right at 8, I think, is unfortunately the top landing spot outside of us is the spot before us for Jeremiyah Love. And that just stings, doesn't it? Oh man, that would suck. That would absolutely suck to see him go off the board right before we get there, knowing that there was a chance to add such an elite playmaker to the offense, and having him go off the board right before it would absolutely burn, but it wouldn't be the end of things. We know that the Chiefs need to address the running back position. Jeremiyah Love is by far the best way of doing that, in my opinion. But if you can't get him, you cannot just wring your hands and say, okay, we're fine, because the numbers last year were awful. And I'm going to prove to you in a minute that this doesn't have anything to do, well, I don't know if I'm going to say it doesn't have anything to do, but it is not the fault of our offensive line. But look at these numbers. 25th in yards per game, 20th in yards per rush, 27th in yards over expectation for our backs, and 28th in yards after contact, adding no value at the running back position despite solid play from the offensive line. Here are a couple offensive line specific run game statistics that I want you guys to check out here. Stuffed run rate. We finished 3rd best in the NFL when it comes to preventing your runs from being stuffed for loss. 11.9% stuffed run rate is fantastic. 5-1 yards before contact for our backs. They, on average, were able to get out, find a little bit of wiggle room because the offensive line was creating that space. They finished 17th in PFF run blocking grade. That should not have resulted in one of the worst rushing offenses in the NFL from a run blocking perspective. I don't know how else I could show it to you guys, but the problem at the end of the day was not the offensive line, at least not when that 5 was healthy. I know we had issues when the 5 kind of finally got hurt and we were throwing together a pretty weak group out there. Yes, maybe you could say then we had issues from the offensive line as far as run blocking goes. But for the majority of the season, it was on our running backs. And if you miss on Love, there's a number of other options that you can fall back on. You can't just quit. You cannot wring your hands. Like I said, you have to come away with one of these 3 guys. Kenneth Walker from the Seattle Seahawks. It seems increasingly likely that the Super Bowl MVP is going to hit free agency, that Seattle, for whatever reason, does not view him as part of their long-term plans and are ready to let him walk. Breece Hall from the New York Jets. Seems like he hates New York. Seems like he wants out. So I think he's set to hit free agency. I think he'd be a fantastic pickup. And then the Jags are just so cap-strapped, I don't think they're going to be able to keep Travis Etienne. We've talked about all 3 of these guys before. One of them, if you cannot get Jeremiyah Love, has to become a Kansas City Chief. Absolutely has to. You cannot leave this running back room unaddressed going into 2026. I want you to play Brett Veach right now for me, though. Pick a running back. You could take any of them. We're taking all the other mitigating factors out of play. No other teams are competing with you. There's no other teams drafting. You could just have Jeremiyah Love. Pick one for me. Type BH if you're on Team Breece Hall, someone we were really big on during the trade deadline. Type TE if you're big on Travis Etienne, if that's the direction you want to go in. If you want the Super Bowl MVP, go KW, Kenneth Walker in the comments for me. Or if your team draft Jeremiyah Love, you want Love, sub for love, as we say on this channel, type JL in the comments for me. Weigh in for me, Chiefs Kingdom, in the comment section. I want you to pick a running back. And that's going to do it for us on today's episode of the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. As always, we appreciate you watching, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Let's go Kansas City Chiefs.